With Spider-Man, brand new day, set to release on July 31st, 2026, one big question begins to emerge. What happens when Spider-Man faces an enemy that completely neutralizes his greatest advantage? In the world of Marvel Comics, many heroes have faced massive threats. But only a few enemies can truly take away a hero's core strength. And one of the most fascinating cases is when Spider-Man goes up against the Hand, an ancient ninja organization that is not only deadly in combat, but also operates in a mystical realm beyond logic. This is not just an ordinary fight. This is a situation where Spider-Man is forced to fight without the very power that has always been his foundation, the Spider Sense. The Hand is a ninja sect originating from feudal Japan that has evolved over hundreds of years. They are not merely assassins or a typical criminal organization. They are a group that combines high-level martial arts with dark rituals involving supernatural energy. In many versions of the story, they are also connected to an ancient demonic entity known as Beast, which serves as the source of their spiritual power. This makes the Hand operate not only in the physical world, but also in realms that intersect with dark dimensions, places where human logic often does not apply. There are two main abilities that make the Hand extremely dangerous. The first is extreme stealth. Members of the Hand are trained to erase their presence from their surroundings. They can control their breathing, heart rate, and even body movement to the point of near undetectability. In extreme cases, they can move silently across surfaces that should produce sound. They use shadows, dark angles, and even crowds to blend in and disappear. What makes this even more dangerous is that this ability is not only physical, but also spiritual. They can calm their killing intent, making them undetectable as a threat by instinct-based systems like Spider Sense. This means Spider-Man doesn't lose his reflexes, but he loses the time needed to react.
Wow.
The second and far more terrifying ability is resurrection. The Hand possesses rituals that allow them to bring fallen warriors back to life. This process typically involves sacrifice, dark energy, and ancient incantations. Those who return often lose part of their humanity. They become colder, more obedient, and far more dangerous. This means they are not only powerful, but also endless. And this must be understood from the beginning. The Hand is not an enemy that can be defeated once and be done. Now we move to Spider-Man. Spider-Man is known as a hero who heavily relies on his Spider Sense, an extra sense that warns him of danger before it happens. In many situations, Spider Sense is the main reason he survives attacks that would be impossible for normal humans to avoid. But when facing the Hand, this ability does not work as usual. Why? Because in some Marvel stories, the Hand can conceal their intent until the very last moment. They do not appear as an active threat until the attack is already about to happen. This causes Spider Sense to react too late, not absent, but not fast enough to provide an advantage. And that is enough to change everything. Spider-Man's involvement usually begins with a simple case: missing persons, illegal activities, or a mysterious criminal network in New York. But the deeper he investigates, the more unnatural patterns emerge: victims without a trace, locations that are too clean, and witnesses who only saw dark silhouettes moving across rooftops. Some victims even share subtle connections: certain businessmen, scientists, or individuals who unknowingly have access to valuable resources. This shows that the Hand does not act randomly. They choose their targets with purpose. At first, Spider-Man thinks this is just ordinary crime, until he is attacked. And that's when everything changes. Spider Sense fails to give sufficient warning. The attacks come almost simultaneously with his reaction. For the first time, Spider-Man is forced into a defensive position from the start of the fight. In some moments, he even has to rely on luck rather than instinct. The result is clear. He does not win. He is forced to retreat. This is not a total defeat, but it is enough to make him realize his usual methods will not work. And this is where the most important phase begins: adaptation. Spider-Man begins to rebuild his fighting style from scratch. He starts relying on things that were previously only secondary: sharper visual observation, analysis of enemy movement patterns, utilization of space and positioning, and control of combat tempo. He begins to notice small details: the way enemies shift positions, the pauses before they strike, and how they coordinate as a unit. The Hand is not just a group of fighters, but a highly disciplined unit. Spider-Man also realizes that their strength is not only in their attacks, but in constant pressure. They do not allow breathing room. They attack in succession, wearing their opponent down. To counter this, Spider-Man changes his fighting rhythm. He no longer tries to defeat everyone at once, but instead breaks their focus, isolates targets, and creates openings. In some interpretations, Spider-Man also adopts a more technical approach. modifying his webbing into detection tools, creating movement-based traps, and even preparing the battlefield before enemies arrive. He begins to control the arena, rather than merely surviving within it. And this is where a major shift happens. In the next battles, Spider-Man is no longer blind. He may not have an effective spider sense, but he has experience, intelligence, and extraordinary adaptability. He begins defeating them, one by one, even in large numbers. However, there's one thing he realizes. Although he wins technically, every fight drains far more energy than usual. Without spider sense, every small mistake can be fatal. This makes every victory feel costly. Spider-Man can defeat the hand ninjas in direct combat, but those victories never feel final, because every time the fight ends, they return. The hand uses resurrection rituals to bring their members back. This makes all of Spider-Man's victories temporary. And this is where the conflict shifts from a fight into a war. Spider-Man is no longer facing an enemy that can be stopped. He is facing a cycle, an enemy that keeps coming back. And this brings a new kind of pressure, not only physical, but also mental. Because no matter how many he defeats, it is never enough. In some moments, a moral dilemma even emerges. Spider-Man is known as a hero who does not kill. But when facing enemies who can return from death, the line between defeating and stopping becomes blurred. This adds a significant psychological burden. At this point, the big question is, can Spider-Man destroy the hand alone? The answer, no. And this is not a weakness of Spider-Man. This is the reality of the hand scale as a threat. They are not just a group of ninjas. They are a global network with ideological roots and mystical power. To face them requires more than individual strength. This is where Daredevil comes in. Daredevil has a long history with the hand. His radar sense allows him to detect enemies even when they are physically hidden. He understands how they operate, their structure, and even their philosophy. In addition, there is Elektra. Elektra is not just an enemy or ally. She is part of the hand's history itself. In some storylines, she has even served as their leader. She understands their rituals, their weaknesses, and how to destroy them from within. When Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Elektra work together, the hand can finally be seriously suppressed. They can destroy main bases, disrupt resurrection rituals, defeat key leaders, and break the organization's structure. In some moments, the hand even appears to be completely destroyed, but only appears, because, in the end, they always return. The hand is not just a physical organization. They are an ideology that is passed down. As long as there are those who believe in their power, as long as their rituals can still be performed, the hand will never truly disappear.